Hi there, and welcome to our fourth and final video of this exercise 1 from our SOLIDWORKS 2020 tutorial booklet. Where we left off was in the last video was right here where we created our circle and dimensioned it to where we want it to be. Now I will remind you, don't forget now, if you successfully completed that step, come on up here. If you hit save, it's just going to overwrite your last save file, which might be fine for what you're doing here today. But generally speaking, you want to come in and name it something slightly different. You might want to use the date or something that identifies this step as being unique from the previous one. So I just changed mine to exercise 1 video 3. So before we make the hole in this one, we're actually going to create a second circle. So I'm going to go back into Sketch, click the circle icon, and notice when I go to create my circle, I have this little dotted line. We call that a construction line. And because that doesn't actually draw anything, it just gives us an indication of whether or not we're lined up with the origin of the other circle. So I do want to be lined up with that. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to make the circle however big. I mean, I can try and be exact, and I can get 3.38 or I can get 0.37, but I don't know if it's 0.375. So I still have to come down here and adjust it accordingly. So I'm going to hit decimal 375 to match the radius of the other circle. And then I'm going to place it where I want it to be. Now, you'll notice, again, I'm going to the origin of the circle, and I don't need to do the y-axis dimension because that was lined up with the other one. So I do want to adjust the x-axis dimension, so I'm going to do that. Now, when I put in 1, those are closer together than what I would like. So what I'm going to do is actually change my dimensions. So if I say 0.75, that moves it. I can do that here, 0.75, and it moves it. So it's not a permanent thing when you dimension things in SOLIDWORKS. And that looks more like where I want them to be. So now I have my 2 circles on top of my 3D object. And I'm going to switch my view to isometric so that we can see the effect of what happens when I make the cut. So I can leave my smart dimension. On my menu bar here, I'm going to click on the Features tab, and I'll come over to Extruded Cut this time instead of Extruded Boss Base, because we want to cut through the item. And you can see it goes through, because my default dimension that comes up is 0.5 inches, which is the thickness of our original rectangle. However, what I tend to do is go through all in situations like this. It's just a personal preference. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect anything. But if this rectangle were actually 5 feet deep, because I selected through all, the holes will cut through the whole thing. So later on, if I need to adjust the thickness of this particular item, I can do it, and the holes will continue to cut through them. Okay, and there is our cut. So that is actually the end of exercise 1. And I'm going to make sure I save it because I have that nice and successfully completed. Where you would go from here is in the tutorial booklet, you would go to challenge 1. And this is what challenge 1 looks like. And if we look at that from the front view, you can see that this edge and this edge are not the same. Okay, so they're not the same distance from your bottom edge. So do make sure that you're paying close attention to the specific dimensions that we're going to be using in this challenge. So I'll leave it at that. I don't do a step-by-step tutorial for the challenge because it's just that, a challenge. So contact me if you have any questions with it. And otherwise, we will see you in the videos for exercise 2.